sailboat in the moonlight and June. Wouldn't that be heaven? Oh, heaven just for two. A soft breeze on a June night and June. What a perfect setting for letting dreams come true.
We have some very interesting guests with us today here on a virtual happy hour. This young couple have been working on YouTube for a number of years now, and we've all followed them as they progressed from sailboats to powerboats and back to sailboats again. And we're really excited to welcome Billy and Sierra from Tula's Endless Summer. Welcome.
Welcome.
Hey,
everybody.
hey guys, thanks for having us.
Yeah, well, we're really glad you could join us. So I should say that we did meet one another, and it was Christmas Eve of 2018. And I don't know if you remember this, it was in Manatee Pocket.
No, Peck Lake.
Peck Lake, yeah.
Peck Lake, yeah. With we were with Ben and
Tamby.
Tamby from Sailboat Story, yeah.
That's right.
But Sierra wasn't there. She was at her parents' place.
Yeah, my dad had surgery the next day, so we were going up to Orlando.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's funny. We did see you. I think 2 days later or a day later. We stayed Christmas Day at Peck Lake, and then we went on to Florida, like onto Miami rather. And I think we were a day or two out of Peck Lake, and this powerboat went by with a whole bunch of people on it, and you were in it.
Oh, it was probably on your dad's boat, yeah.
Okay.
On the center console, we probably went for a ride or something, yeah.
Yeah, so we did see the two of you there. So you've had quite an adventure over the last week, 2 weeks, I guess.
Yeah, 2 weeks basically. We just got back to Florida, but that trip was definitely an adventure for sure.
It's definitely nice to come on land again.
So the last we heard from you, you were in the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Yep.
So tell us what happened.
Yeah, we were in the USVIs for a while. We were we were just bouncing around there a little bit. I guess we were staying off the beaten path a little while the whole virus thing was going on. We were kind of staying to ourselves off the St. John, and it was time to come home. It was time to
Our plan was to get back to Florida anyways. My sister was supposed to get married in June, so our plan was stop in USVI for a little bit, do our whole trip in the Bahamas like we normally do, and then back to Florida. But then obviously we couldn't get to the Bahamas, the wedding got canceled, so we kind of just tried to wait for the best weather window to get back.
Yeah.
And we signed up for a rally with the Salty Dog rally to get us back home, and that was nice. And our trip took way longer than expected, but we made it.
Originally, we were just going to do the 7 to 9 days straight back to Florida. The first 3 or 4 days were pure magic. It was flat calm. There was like a half a foot long period rolling swell from behind us, and we had just enough wind to be able to sail. We weren't going super fast, but we were moving in the calmest conditions ever, and so we were happy. And then we started to get some weather reports of storms, like big, huge thunderstorms off of Cuba, and then some low pressure systems still working around Florida. So we stopped in Great Inagua for a night or two.
Yeah, and the Salty Dog Rally, they got us, they worked really hard and they got us exemptions to stop, because normally right now you can't stop. You get fined.
That's right, yeah.
$10,000. So they worked really hard to do that. So we were able to stop there, and I think we stopped for like 2 nights.
And then we continued on, but we saw just as we were starting to continue on, there was still the same sort of situation of big thunderstorms off of Cuba. So they're actually telling us to slow down. So we actually just went to the Ragged Islands for another night just to wait that out. And then the next day we continued on, but there were still some storms around, thunderstorms. So we got into 1 or 2 really nasty thunderstorms. The wind was howling. And then we just kind of hugged the southern and then eastern, western Bahama bank. And we eventually made it up to Cat Key, and then waited a day or two to cross the Gulf Stream and make it back to Florida. But those 3 days making it up to Cat Key were just the most uncomfortable sailing ever done.
Yeah.
How did everyone else manage? Okay.
Yeah, everyone got kind of mixed up a little bit, kind of.
It depended, like, yeah, where you were going, if you were going to, like, Lake Worth in Miami or down to the Keys, because at one point you have to either go on either side of Sal Bank, which is a Bahamian island way out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And our friends, they were planning on going to the Keys, so they were more in the old Bahama Channel than we were, and they had it a lot more rough than we did. They said they saw like 12 to 14 foot seas and 60 knots of wind, and they were having they were not having fun. So they're safe, everybody's safe.
Yeah, they were out in the open. We hugged that bank, so I think, and my philosophy was the bank wouldn't allow the swells to build up too big.
Because it's only like 20 feet.
Yeah, because it's only 20 feet all through there, and I think it worked. We didn't get massive swells, but and then we stayed in deep water just off the bank. But we did get some short, steep stuff that was still very uncomfortable.
Yeah, there were waves were like breaking over the cabin top, and we hit
dear.
Over the cabin top. Wow. So how did Adrenaline do?
She thinks it was a swell. It was just the swell bashing into the boat, and then the spray just coming over the top.
You can say what you want, but that's not the truth. Just making you try to feel better. But we did hit a speed record this time.
Yeah, we were surfing at 18 knots this trip.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So the boat came through unscathed?
Yeah, she held up so well. Especially, I was kind of worried those last 3 days. I thought, man, if something breaks here, it's gonna just suck. But it held up. Yeah, nothing broke. We had some issues with our autopilot is very old and simple. And we had a band brake, but I had a spare, and I had to rig some things to put a little more tension on that band. But that was it. Yeah, no major breakages. So.
Always fun to do that stuff in rough weather.
Yeah. Oh God.
Now you guys you do really short passages usually. From what I've seen of your sailing, you normally like to do like a 2-day and then find a place to hunker down. That's your normal pattern, right?
Yeah, and that's what we've done. Our longest was only 3 days, probably.
3 nights and 4 days was our longest.
3 nights and 4 days, and that is what we usually do. We usually just do day or 2-day hops. And I guess we didn't really. Did we go beyond that this trip?
Yeah, we did 4 nights and 5 days.
4 nights and 5 days. So yeah.
That's a long trip.
So how did you find it? How did you find the difference between short passages and longer ones?
Well, I think what really helped me, because you can do whatever, but I get, I don't get seasick necessarily, but I get really bad headaches and like, sometimes I do throw up, but not all the time. But the first 5 days that we were out there was super flat calm and like great weather. So that helped. And then we had 2 nights to rest. And then the next day we did it overnight, and then we had to stop again, and then 3 nights of uncomfortable stuff. But I like saw the light at the end of the tunnel by that point.
Yeah.
So I think that helped.
Another thing that really helped, we used to do like our watches would be 3 on and 3 off, and we did 5 on and 5 off. And I think I think that helped a lot this trip, especially because I'm more of a night person and Sierra's more of a morning person. So if I can keep watch until like 1 or 2 a.m. she's pretty good at sleeping that whole time and then waking up, and then we can just take it from there. So that definitely helped. Like sleep is a big factor for us being comfortable and feeling okay, For
sure. I would get sick on passages even overnight. Like the first night I'd be just
so it would be a little unbalanced because I try and stay and watch as long as I could, because he was Deb would save the day.
I could still come up and do, if there was a sail to be doused or something like that.
Or a light that I couldn't figure out.
Yeah. What is that? Is that a ship or?
Yeah. And once it was a ship, we were really close.
And did you find a cure, Chris, or?
Yeah, buy a bigger boat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our
You've
new ones.
tried everything, haven't you? You've tried the wristbands and different medication, but he seems to be able to snap out of it if he's really needed, but
adrenaline.
It must be.
But 33,000 pounds makes a huge difference. Huge difference. Yeah.
The motion is so much less and slower.
So nice. Yeah. So where did you end up then? You're in Florida again.
Yeah, we're in Florida. We're staying at Sierra's parents' house for a bit while we haul our boat just to get some work done. and and then we're gonna go back in the water and take it from there. We don't really have any too many. We might do a camper thing for a little bit during hurricane season, but if the Bahamas opens back up before July 1st, we'd like to get over there. So
so you'll be chasing Ben and Tamby Clardy.
We'd love to meet up with them land yachting somewhere. I think they're on New
right. Did you see the t-shirts he made?
Yeah, I like that.
I'd rather be sailing.
That's great.
Funny. So what kind of work are you getting done on the boat?
Just bottom stuff, regular maintenance. We have a few blisters we're just popping out and filling, and then just doing the the full bottom paint and everything. And then what else?
We have a couple more projects when we get it back in, but while it's out, while we're paying for the storage fee, we're just trying to do the bottom as fast as we can, get in, and then we'll do more of our other projects.
On the water, we're going to do like a whole countertop like in our galley and a bunch of just little maintenance stuff all around.
So you guys mostly are doing like the Bahamas and the sort of the Northern Caribbean, right? That's been your haunt for the last 3-4 years.
Well, this is the first time we did the Caribbean. All of the other years we've only done the Bahamas and up to like New England. But this year we went all the way down to Grenada and then all the way back up.
So we were in Grenada for last hurricane season, and then we slowly hopped our way back up.
I heard that you can smell Grenada before you get to it because of the spices. Was that true?
I don't know about the spices. It's definitely true for a lot of these islands. Like I especially remember getting to the Dominican Republic. It was like it just smelled like earth and like wood fire and like maybe some sugar cane. And even when we passed it coming back up, we were 20 miles off and we're 25 miles off and we couldn't really see it, but I could smell the earthy smells coming from.
That's what I've heard. You can smell it before you see it. Yeah.
And Grenada is the spice island, so we brought home lots of cinnamon and nutmeg and
oh my gosh.
Wow, lovely. So do you see yourself going out of like maybe sailing the Great Lakes or sailing the Pacific or crossing the Atlantic? Any plans for stuff like that?
At some point, we're kind of just up in the air right now with everything, with borders being closed and all of that good stuff. And with our dog, she makes everything a little bit more complicated because just checking into countries is a little bit difficult. So I think right now we're just putting like all distant travel on hold because we don't know, like there could be another spike in this whole virus. So we're not trying to make any like set in stone.
We've entertained all those ideas. I think we've entertained crossing the North or the Atlantic, Azores, but I think more what the better chance of happening would be going down to Panama and then through the canal possibly, and then just stick on the west coast of Central and then up to North America. But I don't know what the time frame would be on that. We'd love to cross Pacific and get to like French Polynesia. One of the biggest challenges with us is jetty though. They are very strict on importing pets and like the quarantining required for them. So that would limit us.
Sure. And how is Jetty?
She's good. She's right below me.
She's around here somewhere.
My sister just let all the dogs out, so they're all outside right now.
Do you find it hard with the dog on board?
No, it is complicated. It definitely takes a lot of planning, especially this year in the Caribbean. Like I have the Bahamas down pat, but the Caribbean, there's so many different countries and so many different requirements. But I think we did pretty well this year.
Yeah, and the rules and the process is a little bit ambiguous in some places, but Sierra's been doing a great job of just really digging in and researching, and she's been keeping track of all the information and publishing it on our website for other people when they're looking to go through that process.
Awesome.
Try to make it easier for them. So it's definitely more work, but you figured it out well.
It's worth it. She's definitely worth it.
We saw so many people with pets when we traveled.
Yeah, and lots of people with 2 dogs on board.
Yeah, we've seen that a lot too.
And not little dogs too, like big dogs, right?
Yeah.
So, but they were on big boats too, so that makes a difference.
Now, speaking of big boats, you guys started with a very small boat. Can you kind of walk us through the progression of you went from sail to power to sail again, right?
Yeah. I guess I've always had boats growing up, little boats, and then in college I had an old houseboat me and my friends restored, and we lived on for the summer while we were lifeguarding up in New York. So that was kind of the very beginning. But then I sold that houseboat and I got Tula, and Tula was a little 26-foot double ender pocket cruiser, really solid boat, really good sailing boat, and it was a Morris Francis classic.
Yeah,
do you know the boat?
That's a really nice boat. Yeah.
Yeah, they're great, man. I miss Tula sometimes. It was so, and that was my first boat. I sailed like here and there, like maybe like a handful of times, like 4 or 5 times before I even bought that boat. But I've been kiteboarding for years, and that's where I guess most of my base knowledge of sailing came from.
Sure.
But anyway, Tula was where I really learned how to sail like an actual sailboat. And then, and I had Tula for a few years, took her down the coast. I met Sierra in Florida, and then she hopped on board, and we traveled a little bit, and then we decided we needed some more room. And we weren't set on sailing. So the deal that came along, one of my friends forwarded me this deal. It was an old trawler, and we really liked the character and the style and the functionality of a trawler.
It's like a Taiwanese trawler, right? It was like a Taiwanese.
Yeah, it was a marine trader, and all those Taiwanese trawlers are very similar. 34-foot, single Ford Lehman diesel engine. And the couple we bought it from, older couple we bought it from, they had spent a few years restoring it. Not back to original Bristol boat shape, but like they put some like Home Depot cabinetry in it and stuff, and they did a really good job with like replacing the fuel tanks and framing around that and rebuilding the engine. And it wasn't completely done when we bought it, but
and the windows, like a lot of like the major like issues with trawlers, they had already like tackled those issues for us. So we were really just doing like putting beds in and the countertops and like what else do we do? Like rotted wood. That was a big thing that we did.
A little bit of rotted deck, especially up in the bridge.
I think iron gas tanks or iron fuel tanks are the big issue on those boats, usually.
Yeah, I don't know. They must have had iron because they did. Yeah. They replaced them with nice stainless steel tanks, and they did some beautiful framing around the tanks. That whole system was really solid by the time we got the boat.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had that for
like
2.5 years, and then we decided that we wanted to go further. It was old diesel engine, and we were towing a 16-foot whaler. That was our tender, and we didn't feel too guilty about that because if anything did happen, we had another, we had a 60 horsepower engine to tow us to where we need to go.
Oh my goodness! Now that's a tender.
Yeah, it worked really well for what we did. We lost a knot and some fuel efficiency, but it was all right.
But when we sold that boat, we were actually planning to get in a sliding camper and drive through Central and South America. And that was our plan for like at least a year. Planned it all out, like saved the money to do it. And then at the last minute, Billy's like, "Are you sure you want to get off the water?" And I was like, "Well, if you can find us a catamaran," because I'm the same way, like rolling motion, like you handle seasick better than I do, but I just like to be comfortable. And in rough conditions, that wasn't comfortable. And we did want to go farther, and that was limiting us. So I was like, "Oh, let's go farther on land." And Billy's like, "Okay, I'll find us a catamaran." So we found one that was not advertised very well, really, really good deal, like all the other boats, and needed a lot of work.
A lot of work.
That's what we did.
We have a system of doing a trip, doing work from what we find from that trip broke or what needs to be changed.
And the work that we do isn't just maintenance, it's always been improving the boat, fixing things that broke, but also upgrading everything, bringing the boat back to a really solid, sailable boat.
We have ripped up tons and tons of rotted wood. We have taken out the windows and replaced all the rotted wood around the windows, replaced them.
Yeah. And that's the boat you're in now, Adrenaline.
So
yes.
Okay.
What sort of catamaran is that then?
She's a 1988 Crowther Spindrift, Mark 2 or 3, I forget exactly. So it's 40 foot long, but it's not like the 40-foot catamarans you see today. The hulls are very, very slender. The cabin top does not enclose the 2 hulls, so you have to, or the cabin. So you have to go out the main cabin down into the hulls from the outside. And yeah, it was Locke Crowther was an Australian designer, and he was ahead of his time for designing performance catamarans back in the 70s, 80s, early 90s. And this was one of them. So yeah, it was a pretty fast boat. And when we bought it, it was very loaded down. It needed a lot of work. Everything needed to be replaced. So that's what we've been doing on and off in between traveling.
Yeah, we do like a couple big projects, get them done. As soon as those are done, we'll go travel for like a couple months, and then we'll go back to project work. And we did that for like a year and a half. And then this year we were like, okay, we did as much as we could do. Let's go travel for a whole year. So
yeah,
that was it.
There's always stuff to do along the way, but yeah, we
pretty much have. It is a boat.
Yeah.
True that.
We pretty much, besides all that stuff that's ongoing, we pretty much have her in where we think she should be.
Yeah. So what's the construction of that boat? What's it made of?
They're foam core hulls, and it's all, I don't know what kind of resin they use, but it's glass over foam core hulls, and then the whole superstructure, the decks and cabin top is all high quality marine ply. I was really impressed because there were some spots with water intrusion, and I mean, I've seen water intrusion on all sorts of boats, and usually it spreads and delaminates and rots the wood. The water intrusion where I saw it on this boat was very isolated. Like if it was through a bolt fitting, like in the stanchion, it was wet like that much around and not even that soft.
Yeah.
So it was built in Africa, so it must have been their nice African hardwood plywood.
Sure.
And then all the beams are really nice, thick, some sort of hardwood beams.
So this is a one-off boat then. It's built. These are built one at a time. They're not in a factory.
Yeah.
And they're all home built. So
well, they're all one-off boats. All these spin drifts. Yeah, never out of a mold or anything. As far as I know, people, he would sell the plans and people would build them on their own, or maybe a professional boat builder would build them. But yeah, one-off. I've never heard of anyone pulling a mold off of these hulls or anything.
Yeah.
So do you have a dream boat, or is this the dream boat?
there's always a dream boat.
Yeah, this one's not the dream boat. This
what
one
has
yeah. This one has been amazing for us, and to get a taste of the catamaran world and to see what it's all about. But because it is so slender and minimal, we sacrifice living space on it a bit. We sacrifice how much stuff we can put on it.
Yeah.
And we don't have a lot of stuff. I think the dream boat for us would be something, yes, that has more living room, but still sails well and is simple. Like right now, our boat, it is a performance catamaran. So we have the dagger boards, we have very big sails, and it takes a lot of work to sail it. And I think we just want something a little bit simpler, but a little bit more room, because we do want to do this for a while. And if we stayed on our boat for another 3 years, I think we'd be burnt out.
Yeah.
We had this discussion with James Evanson from Zangara. And he had a very similar performance catamaran, daggerboard catamaran.
Same boat.
It's the same boat.
Yeah, his might have been, I don't know if his was the model before ours, or if someone at one point added you call them sugar scoops on our boat, but they're this narrow. But added a foot or two on our boat. So that's the only difference, pretty much.
And they're made by different people.
And built by different people.
And they're all built by different people. Yeah. So you've been traveling now for how many years?
Ooh, full time? Well,
full time for 2 years, and before that we were working seasonal jobs, and I was going to school, so we would travel for like 2 months or a month at a time, and then go back to school or work, and then travel again. So but full time for like 2 years.
And then 4 or 5 years doing seasonal.
So do you have a favorite place you've gone?
Definitely the Bahamas. We love the Bahamas.
Oh wow.
We talk about it all the time, especially this past year being down in the Caribbean. It's kind of always comparing it back to the Bahamas, which we try not to do too much because it spoiled it a little bit, because we do love the Bahamas a little.
Sure.
But we tell people now, like now that we've seen a lot of the Caribbean is amazing for the landscape and mountains and waterfalls and vegetation and hiking and culture too. Like the culture is really cool down there.
And we love all that stuff. We absolutely love that stuff. But we also love to dive and surf and fish, and the waters in the Bahamas, like nothing compares. Sorry.
Hey. And
I miss having a dog, so it's kind of nice to have. I keep telling Chris we need a dog on board. He goes, no dogs on board. Boy. But somehow I just have a feeling there's going to be a dog that weasels into your home.
Everybody needs a dog.
I think so too.
Yeah, we've always had one.
I love watching your when you're surfing and kiteboarding. I can't believe, Sierra, how strong you are.
Oh, thank you.
And I can't believe how close you get to when you're kite surfing to land. Like, do you ever have you ever accidentally hit something because you couldn't get out of it?
I'm sure I have, but nothing serious, and nothing. I don't take those risks without. I've been doing it for a long time, risks, so whatever risks I take, I'm
thinking I don't take risks. We saw you take risks.
Yeah, he does.
And not that I don't take risks, but no uncalculated risks. I understand the outcomes and my chance of this going wrong, so I don't get into those situations.
I'm very conservative for that stuff. I'm like, there's not a hospital for another 100 miles. So.
Oh yeah, I know. I don't know if it's like girls think that way. I don't know. I always say that we think forward. We're always thinking like, okay, if this happens, then I know that we can do this. But I don't think guys think so much that way.
That's where the phrase "hold my beer" comes from.
Yeah. Watch this. Hold my beer. Watch this. Yeah.
I just saw one of those this morning.
So, but we were really interested in. Sorry, when you were you'd gone off your boat to get your paperwork done, and you were standing up in your dinghy, and you went. Remember, you went under the little bridge, and then you went in between the piers. But Sierra, were you flying the drone next to him while he did that?
I was on, so that specific day, you did the GoPro of you on the dinghy, and then the next day we knew we wanted to make the whole story of it, so I went on land and filmed him going through the bridge.
Oh, it was 2 days.
I was on land and he was in the dinghy.
It was spectacular.
Yeah, really nice.
It was so well done.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it was a cool place. I was in Union Island in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and that bridge, and then having that strip of land, and then that was all an old marina that they had started to build, but they had never finished it. And it was just a cool place. And then the blue water all over there.
And then the overheads that you did too, where you go through the Narrows, and you did an overhead shot that just tied it all together. Really, really nicely done. Yeah.
It was.
Thank you so much.
And we normally don't do pre-planned or post-planned stuff like that where it's already happened, but I can't get off the boat until he checks us in. So filming while checking in is kind of limited. So that's why we went back and did some extra stuff.
We couldn't tell that it was done in 2 days. It was really beautiful,
really well done, yeah.